Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, and you're about to watch and listen to a very long but very detailed interview that took place with Wes Hoffman. An active member of the St. Louis and Midwest punk scenes in the early 2000s, Wes Hoffman took a hiatus from music for several years before coming back into the fold in 2017. After a few musical collaborations with drummer Justin Unterseh, Wes decided he couldn't keep the music bottled up anymore and began releasing songs again. He's got a passion for punk beats, loud guitars, and a penchant for honest, emotional lyrics. Wes is back with friends and recently shared his most meaningful song of 2021, starting with the single What's Left of Me. What's Left of Me was released on March 5th on all major streaming platforms and was released along with a music video, which you are just about to see a little snippet of in a bit. Wes is also known for his former and current podcast, The Strange House and Wes Hoffman with Friends respectively. Now in this interview we talk about Wes's entire career from his early days, what got him into music, what attracted him to the punk rock scene, and what brought him back after his hiatus. There's a very personal stories in here, very personal details, so it is very fascinating. We also discuss aspects of horror, video games, and the wider world of music. You're in for a blast, so sit back and enjoy. First things first, man. Although we've been talking already for the sake of a cut and edited interview, how's your day going so far?
It's going okay. So far, so good. The sun's shining. It's been a great day so far.
Okay, bigger picture then. The last 12 months, the COVID era, so to speak. How have you personally been holding up?
I've been actually doing pretty okay. Like right before COVID, I moved into a new apartment by myself, which you would think would be tough, but it's actually been good for me. Like I've enjoyed some of the alone time. It was tough at times for sure, not being able to see people, but I've played a lot of video games, like you mentioned. I've watched a lot of movies, and over the last 6 months or so, I did a little bit of traveling as well, some hiking. I went outside and my lady and I, we did a lot of hiking this past summer and fall, and for the last 6 months or so, I've really been focused on my music, writing, recording, and now a little over 2 weeks ago, released this song, and that's been really, really fun. So I'm actually doing pretty okay. So far, so good.
Okay. That's good. What's been keeping you busy then? You say you've been going on walks in the last 6 months doing music, but what about like work, stuff like that? Is that day-to-day stuff?
Work has, so I work, I'm a recruiter for a Nestle Purina, which is a dog food company here. And I've been working from home pretty much for an entire year. I went back into the office for a month back in the summer, but decided to stay home for a little while. And I'm usually pretty busy throughout the day with work, but then once work's over, I'll usually head to my studio, or I have recently started working out at a gym and stuff like that. So I've been going on a ton of walks in the evenings and stuff like that. So trying to get out of the house as much as I can, as safely as I can.
You've got a ton of positives. Normally our next question is basically we try to focus on the positive aspect, because people can get so bogged down with the COVID thing and the crap, particularly when you're an artist and in a band and you've not been able to tour and you've not been able to do this. So we'd kind of like to ask people, well, what positives have you been able to take from this period? But from what you're saying, everything.
Yeah, no, it has been good. And I was looking forward to playing some shows this year for sure, or last year, 2020. but a really good thing that came out of this was I can't play shows, but I can record. And
Mm.
I have a practice, a rehearsal space here, and there's a recording studio there. And so I just decided, hey, I wrote some really good songs, and I wanted to record them and get them down. And I feel like that's almost been, it kind of forced me to take that step and to actually like, hey, I'm gonna go into the studio and do this. And I feel like in a way that gave me the chance to almost kind of rebrand my music and myself as an as a musician as well. So that's it's been good. It's been better than I expected. And I know a lot of people have been going through tough times, so sometimes I feel bad saying, oh, it's been pretty good for me, but I really don't have too many complaints at this point. Other than I want to play a show and I want to be able to go to a bar and drink with my friends in a safe way.
Yeah. No, I mean, you shouldn't feel, I understand the guilt from it, you shouldn't. And generally, one of the most incredible things, again, is, again, talking to a white, and we're talking about bands from Australia all the way up to Scandinavian countries, to our own home territories. And we're always constantly surprised by how many have said, you know what, this period, while forced, and obviously no live music, has been good for them. Because it's kind of forced you off the road, and maybe you've been able to take time with an album or take time with music, or started something you've never done before. It's great to hear that.
Yeah, or even time with your family, or like with I feel like I have a new girlfriend, and I feel like we've talked about this several times. Like, if it wasn't for having to stay home and not being able to go out and do things that we normally do when the world is going at its normal pace, we've been able to spend a lot of quality time together just at home, talking, doing things, spending time getting to know each other better too. So I feel like that's definitely a positive thing. Is it can help. It caused everybody to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, but it's been slow for a year now. It'd be nice if things started speeding up just a little bit.
Yeah, just kick it up a notch or two.
So, dude, we're gonna go back to the start for you. Growing up, then, where did your interest in music start from? It's a broad question, but
Yeah.
what can you remember?
Yeah, well, my mom is a big music person. She's an amazing pianist. Played the piano, taught me and my sisters how to play piano when we were little. And
Wow.
probably, I think when we were starting at probably age 4 or 5, she started teaching us how to play the piano. And I always just thought it was really cool. I kind of grew out of the piano. I didn't want to. I got to about the 5th grade and I wanted to stop. I just lost interest in it a little bit, and I started playing sports and video games and things like that. So I grew out of that a little bit, but I always did like the idea of putting notes together in a certain pattern, and oh, it's cool that I can play this song that on the piano. And then I started getting really interested in the guitar, and my parents got me a guitar. My mom had one, and they got me one, and that was, I heard. Are you familiar with the band MXPX?
No, that doesn't ring a bell. No.
They're a punk band from the West Coast here in the United States, and
Okay.
I heard that they were one of the first bands that I heard, and I thought that they were just great, and that's how I got into punk rock. And then, of course, right around that time that I was that age, about 5th grade, like No Effects, Green Day, The Offspring, Rancid, all of these bands were starting to get a lot of like commercial success, and it was becoming easier to find these punk rock bands. And so that's real. And then when I got good enough through junior high and high school to actually play, I grew up in a really small town. So like when I found some guys in high school that would actually could play drums or play the bass, like I started a band. And I mean, it's just kind of a normal like uh, you know punk rock story of starting a band in your garage. And it was just really fun. I've always just enjoyed, just on a personal level too. I like performing. I like being in front of people, and I even like, I've done my own podcast for like 6 or 7 years. So I really just enjoy kind of putting on a show for people and creating something. And, that's kind of just part of me and who I am.
Was there a specific point though? I mean, beyond the meeting a few guys in school and rocking out that way, was there a specific point where you were like, okay, I'm going to try and take this, dare I say, seriously?
Yeah. So when I was in high school and like in my early 20s, I really wanted to take it seriously. I actually stopped playing music though. Then in like around my mid 20s, I got it's that classic story. I got a job. At the time, I had met my ex-wife, and we had moved in together and everything. And I was like, I'm kind of taking this adult thing a little bit more seriously, and kind of got off that path of playing music. And it's been about 3.5 years now that have really gotten back in. It's probably been about 5, but with this project was just my solo music. It's been about 3.5 years that I really started taking it serious again, and thinking, hey, I might be old, but I can still record and put out music, and I'm not gonna just let my age and the fact that I have a job and all these other things like hinder me from doing something that I love and that I enjoy. And but I quit. I didn't play for about 8 years. I didn't even pick up guitar or anything like that. So this has really been awesome for me to kind of like take my shot, I guess, at doing this again. And it's been really fun.
It's incredible that you would have stopped playing, as you say, so completely for such a long time and then found your way back to it completely. When you first repicked up the guitar effectively, what was that experience like? Was it very were you very dusty, so to speak?
Oh my God. Yeah. I would say probably like it took me about a year to get back to, yeah. I mean, your fingers, like now I can pick up a guitar and, I can just fly up and down the fretboard. And when I very first picked it up though, it was like your muscles, I mean, your muscles have memory to a degree, but just getting everything down, it took a long time. It was still there. I still knew all the chords and the scales and stuff like that. But it definitely, I was very, very rusty. And I think also confidence, like I didn't have a lot of confidence because I had all this knowledge of the guitar, but like I had to get my chops back and get back to like being able to play efficiently and play well. And I didn't have the same confidence that I did when I was younger. And even being older, you kind of think, I thought in my head, should I even be doing this? This seems kind of silly. Should I be picking up a guitar again? But I got over all that.
Well, absolutely. Look at some of the bands you named as well. I realize there are some giants of the scenes, but it's not like the Offspring and the Green Day are kids anymore themselves.
Oh yeah, I mean the guys in the Offspring, they've got it, and Green Day probably like have got to be in their 50s almost now. Like I saw the Offspring. I saw the Offspring play here in St. Louis a few years ago, and like they're still great musicians. But yeah, I mean, people we get older, and if they're still doing it and they're still, they still have the same energy on stage that they did when back in 1994, like then I can do it too. So it's actually pretty inspirational for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like going back to before you initially put down the guitar and hung up the music, so to speak, was the success of those bands you mentioned, the pop punk and punk rock scene, so to speak? So we're talking like the early noughties, the real high point before we moved into what they kind of refers to the emo style of music. Was that at the time, very encouraging? Was that what you kind of wanted to model yourself on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a huge fan of Blink-182, Green Day, like all of those bands that were really kind of breaking through at the time into the mainstream. That was really encouraging to me for sure. There's actually a documentary, you can find it on YouTube. It's called 1994, and it's about the year 1994 when those really big bands Blink-182, Green Day, The Offspring, and there's another one that I'm missing. I mean, No Effects is also another big one that sticks out in my mind. But there were four really big bands at the time that like kind of broke through. I don't know why I'm gonna be kicking myself that I can't remember the fourth one, um, but like that in that time in 1994, things really, I think even Nirvana was like a big break in just kind of pushing forward alternative music and into the mainstream, and kind of paved the way for a lot of these like punk rock bands to kind of become more mainstream. You know what I mean? And it was super encouraging for me. I was only, I was 11 years old at the time, and to see bands like that, like, jumping around on stage and having fun. And I mean, punk rock has been around for a really long time, but like, again, I grew up in a small town, so like I didn't really have access. The internet wasn't like it is now. I didn't have access to MTV and those types of things. But when I started to, as things progressed, like, and I started to get my hands on these things, it was like, oh wow, this is really cool. Like, I want to do that. Like, it just connected with it really. It was like something that I really wanted to, that I felt like the spirit of that music was something that really caught my attention.
And what about, did you find yourself going back to the earlier days of the scene, the early days of punk? So we're talking things like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I am just a fan of like all things punk. Like, I love the Ramones. I love the Sex Pistols. I love learning about all of these different bands. Even going back to like Iggy and the Stooges, or the Stooges, like going way back to some of that stuff that was like borderline psychedelic rock, and then, or borderline punk rock, psychedelic rock, and then getting into the different scenes. Like, in Washington, D.C., there was Minor Threat and Black Flag. Or, I think Black Flag was California, but like there were all these bands, these movements happening, and it just seemed like such an exciting time that for all things music. And in California, there was the whole skate punk thing happening, and it's just really, really cool stuff to dive into and learn about. And then of course, there's the Clash and other things that were happening over in England and stuff like that, and bands that were really big and just monumental. If it wasn't for those guys, like, and even going into metal, as sometimes I like to go back and listen to bands, like listen to some Ozzy Osbourne or some Black Sabbath or some old Metallica, and learn some of those riffs. Because if it wasn't for those guys that were playing, back in the 80s, we wouldn't have the bands that we have today. We were all influenced by them in some way, you know what I mean? Or we were influenced by a band that was influenced by them, so it's all really interesting stuff. I love diving in, and like, I could spend hours. There's so much that I don't know still, about old music and all that kind of stuff. It is a little weird to kind of think about, like, when I was growing up, Nirvana was pretty new. And now, like, Nirvana's played on the classic rock stations here, I'm like, I didn't think I was that old.
We do a series called Track by Track, where we pick out an album at random and basically talk about each track individually and so on. And we pulled out In Utero recently, nice. And it's probably been about 15 years since I've listened to that album. And it was kind of just that moment of being like, oh yeah, this is a really old band now. This is how people know generations. I have a son who's 18 years old this month, and it's like, yeah, he'll know the name Nirvana, but that will be it.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, and even bands, further back, it's just crazy to me. Like a band like Oasis. Some of the people that I work with that are, they're in their early 20s, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember when that album came out when I was in high school. And it was just so, I played that album, What's the Story, Morning Glory, from front to back thousands of times. Like, and I actually went back and listened to it last week, and every song is just an absolute banger on that album. Like, whether that's your type of music or not, like, they're just really well-written songs, But
it's funny. It speaks for itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that now we're at that age where people are just like, wait, what is it again? Oasis? Like,
I have a funny feeling people that'll be watching this right now will be trying to work out based off just by our images. What age are these people? I'm not going to say mine, and you're not going to say yours, but yeah, try and put it together on that. So I wanted to pick a bit more into your taste then, because talk a lot about punk rock and all that, but you've mentioned obviously other bands as well. So do you have a wide array of music you listen to? Are you solely focused on punk rock? Do you like to listen to a lot of metal, a lot of rock, pop, R&B, and so on?
yeah. Well, that's a great question. I mean, punk rock is what I just kind of naturally gravitate towards. Like, I joke about, like, I feel like punk rock's in my DNA. It's like a part of who I am. But I do kind of listen to a little bit of everything. On Sunday mornings, I like to kind of turn on some like old R&B, like soul, kind of like the Temptations or Marvin Gaye, Al Green. I love to listen to some of that stuff, or even some of the newer, like Leon Bridges. Metal. I was in a like kind of a hard metalcore band back in the day, so every once in a while, I like to listen to some metal or some old Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. So I'm kind of open to everything. And then, my girlfriend is really into like singer songwriter stuff. So a lot of like stuff like Wilco and John Moreland, just kind of like a almost kind of country Americana type stuff. So I'm really into that as well, or I've been getting into that more. But I'm really into just kind of I like things to have melody though. That's a big thing with me. Is if you have heard my song, like you probably can get that. Is that like I like catchy melodies, and I like even in the guitars, like I like hooks, something that's gonna reel me in like at the very beginning, and you can get that with metal and hardcore too, but you can really get that with anything. But when stuff gets a little bit too I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. When the melody gets lost a little bit too much, I start to get lost a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head, all right, yeah, you're probably not going to enjoy slam death metal and grindcore and stuff like that. That is just a wall of noise at you.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I'll listen to those bands a little bit, but then I'll kind of be like, all right, maybe I'm ready to switch up to something else. So, but I will say that metalcore and hardcore music, it's really, really fun to play on stage.
It's there's a reason why both those genres, like a lot of young and up and coming bands, are based particularly in the metalcore side of things, and a lot of big bands don't really exist anymore in regards to new bands being made. But when the ones that we see rising up the ranks tend to lean towards that kind of metalcore sound, people like Architects and stuff like that, Parkway Drive.
The new Architects, are you a fan?
I'm a big fan of Architects, not a huge fan of the new album. Like it, don't love it.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I have listened to it a few times through, and I haven't really listened to a lot of their older stuff, but the new one has definitely hooked me. There's a lot of hooky type stuff, We're just a bunch of fucking animals.
It's one of those where I can easily sit back and go, you know what, even though it's maybe not resonating as well with me, I completely could understand and see why it would resonate with a wider audience. And I just want bands to be successful. So sure. Man, if it don't work for me, sweet, it's working for everyone else. Go.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we're running into a problem in this country, this scene. I don't know how it is, how you find it where you are and in the American scene, where we're going to slowly run out of headliners, effectively, festival headliners, because there's only so many times you can book Metallica and Sabbath and Iron Maiden, and a lot of these bands are coming to the end of their careers or have already wrapped it up in the case of Slayer and stuff like that, and you're looking for the future headliners. And
that's a good point.
And where are they? And that's kind of like, and because of the world we live in with the streaming and the lack of physical sales and the need to tour to earn that money, you're kind of sitting there a bit worrying about it.
Yeah, it is different, because like a lot of those bands that you mentioned, like Metallica and Slayer, like or even a band like the Offspring, like in Green Day, you know. Nowadays it's like we all have our phones here, and you can just, you know, it's not how it used to be when those bands were up and coming, you know, and when they were really at the height of their popularity. It's like now it's so fragmented. It's like,
Mm.
oh well, I know one song by Architects, like, you know, but I don't know their whole discography. I just kind of know this new album because everybody's been talking about it. And they were well, the lead singer was on a Neck Deep song a few albums back, and like, you know, you kind of know them, but I don't. That wouldn't be enough to draw me to come to a festival. You know, there would have to be a bunch of other bands if they were headlining. Like, there would have to be a bunch of other bands supporting that I knew that would to get me to go. You know.
Yeah. Do you think you're well switched on, well kind of in tune with this modern way of doing music, the streaming side of things, the YouTube, the fact that realistically you're going to put a song out there and sweet, you'll get X amount of views, but it might not be what you hope for and you'll be obsessing over that number?
Yes and no. Like it, you know, when I was growing up, we were like this was all just so foreign. Even to make a music video was just, I wouldn't even know how to start. But you know, I feel like I had seen, you know, when I put this newest song out, I had seen how a lot of other bands were doing it, where, you know, they put the music video out first and then a few days later they put out the song. And now it's all about like, if you can get on these popular playlists, and if you can get enough people on social media talking about your song and your music and sharing it. And you know, in a way it's like you have to be a social media influencer as well as a musician. You have to really be putting stuff out there. And
Mm.
you know, it's tough. And so I didn't I would say I'm still learning a lot about this new digital age. Like, it is, you know, of course I have goals with what I want the song to do, and we're pretty on track with where I want that to be within the first month of it being released. It's only been out for 2.5 weeks, so
Yeah, give
but
it time.
yeah, so, but I'm pretty happy with you know, it's getting a lot of attention and a lot of people that you know, what's really cool is when I was growing up, like, you would have to kind of play out around your hometown, and that's how people would know about you, is if you played concerts and you would try to get on with bigger local bands. And
Mm.
you know, and you play out as much as you could, and you'd pass out flyers, and you try to get, you know, put up posters at the record store and stuff like that. And that's how you would get people to know. And if you were just out at shows talking to people and be like, you know, hey, I'm Wes Hoffman, I'm in this band or whatever, it was all word of mouth. And you know, if you got big in your town, then you could kind of like, people kind of hear in the next city, you know, in Kansas City, Missouri, they might be like, oh yeah, I heard Wes Hoffman in St. Louis is like a big name there. Now it's like, I'm talking to you and you're in London, and you know, I'm talking to people in New Jersey and New York, and you know, there's people in Canada and Spain and Norway and Poland and Australia and New Zealand who have been listening to my music, and that's just blows my mind. It's like, you know, and I feel like there's this group of people that have been listening to my music, but there's still, you know, not a lot of it's like the opposite now. It's like now you can reach everyone as opposed to just people where you're geographically located. So it's
Mm.
kind of crazy. It's, you know, there might be somebody in um Germany who my song is their favorite song right now, and I've never met that person. I don't know them. They've never seen me play live, but they heard it on some playlist, and you know, they've listened to it 50 times already. Like so that's really really cool to me. That's really exciting. um but yeah, it's hard not to, you know, I really felt like this time, you know, I'm older and I really wanted to like push this music out and get people to listen. So um yeah, that's all that I really asked for, is like, just if you're listening to this podcast, like, just listen to my song one time. That's all I ask. You don't
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
like it, you know, just give it a shot.
Yeah, short attention spans be damned. I mean, it's a couple of minutes. You can give a few minutes to listen to the song. We'll get a bit more into it in a bit as well, specifically about the song. But sticking to the social media thing, the bigger question I got to ask: do you like it though, or is it just a necessary evil, as you say, in regards to pushing out the music?
Yeah, I like social media. I really
Mm,
do. You know, I have to. There's been times where I've taken it way too seriously, and that where I was posted all the time, and always felt like I needed to be creating content. And now I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, it just if I don't post for a while, it's okay. People aren't going to
mm,
forget about me. Like I'm still here. You know. I would say now I'm kind of it's kind of a love hate thing. You know, like it's not like I like sometimes I wish it didn't exist because I feel like it in some ways it like disconnects us more. Um, you know, back in the day, people would call me on the phone and they'd be like, "Hey Wes, how are you doing?" My friend might call me out of the blue while I'm on my way home from work, and we might talk for an hour.
mm.
And now that friend doesn't feel like he has to call me because he can look at my Facebook or my Instagram and see what my latest post was and see, oh, Wes is doing fine. I don't need to talk with him or catch up with him. I just caught up with him. I just looked at his Facebook. And so we're kind of missing that interpersonal connection, you know, because of social media, which I prefer sometimes to just like you know, with some of my best friends and with my girlfriend, like even though she just lives like a couple miles away, like I don't mind talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Sometimes you know, I have friends all over the country, and sometimes it's nice to like have that conversation, especially you know, dealing with COVID. Um, it's been nice to have every once in a while. Hey, let's talk on the phone. Let's FaceTime. Let's like actually spend some quality time talking and catching up. I enjoy that.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I don't think again I've spoken to anyone that ever really says anything positive about the social media aspect. It's always just we have to do it because we need to push our music out and we need to push this and so on. And it's just it is. And it never used to be that way, as you said, and it's kind of got on its way over the last, I don't know, it feels maybe the last 2 years. I don't know. I'm not personally, you know, I'm not a fan. I have a social media account to push my website and stuff
Sure.
out. That's it. You know. But yeah, moving on from that, we've talked a little bit about the simple fact that you play guitar, but we don't want to let people know that that's far from the only thing you actually do, particularly when it comes to your music. I want to talk about your lyrical inspiration more than anything
Okay.
else here. And this comes from really where you draw it from. Is it real life experiences, shared stuff, life in general, looking out your window and seeing chaos and thinking that's something I could write about?
Yeah, I mean, I've really with the, you know, recently I've really tried to sit down and um kind of channel like what am I feeling, what am I thinking? And sometimes the words come out and they don't seem I have to make them make sense, you know, like
Mm,
um a lot of times I'll have a melody in my head for a chorus or a verse and I'll think, okay, how can I match up the words that I want to say with this? But yeah, I've really just been lately I have been pulling a lot from personal experience. You know, I went through a separation. I'm going through a divorce. You know, I moved. I basically like I got this new job. I basically at the beginning around this time last year or a little bit before, I kind of started my life over.
mm,
And you know that I want to tell people like if you want to start over, that you can. It like will it be hard? Yes. Like it will be hard, but like sometimes you have to go through those dark times to get through the get through to the better times, or sometimes you're in a dark time and you want to get back to the happy time, and or you want your life to be something better. And you know, I had to make a lot of tough decisions and
mm,
change a lot of things around, but that's what I want to kind of convey in my songs is that like um, you know, you can make a change, and it is tough, it's hard. I'm a lot happier now than I was a year ago, than I was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I'm in a much better place, but it was because of tough decisions that I made for myself to be better, to you know that to decide on what I wanted and to follow that. And so um, yeah, it's a lot, and but that's really where I've been drawing these songs from now is um, that personal experience and just I went through some tough times, Carl.
Mm. Yeah,
But I'm better for it now, you know?
yeah. I mean, I can't say for a second I can relate in regards to that. I can just empathize, and I'm so happy to hear that you're in a better place than you were. Were you not daunted by the idea of bearing your soul potentially to a wider audience, though?
Oh yeah, I mean that was definitely. I mean that's always scary, you
Mm.
know. That's always kind of part of it. Is hey, I'm putting it all out here on the line for everybody to see. But I've always been that. I've always kind of been the person who wears the heart on my sleeve. You know, and I think that is part of the game is that not everybody's going to like it. It's not for exactly what you were saying earlier. It's not for everybody.
Mm.
If somebody doesn't, I kind of had to come to terms with like, if I'm going to put this out and a lot of people are going to listen to it, then a lot of people might not like it. You know,
Mm.
I like it and I'm proud of it. So that's really kind of all that matters to me. If somebody, you know, I don't like every single kind of music. I don't like every single band out there. So, you know, that's just how it's going to be. And it did take me a while to kind of come to terms with that for sure.
No, that's completely understandable. But what happens? What happens if in a year or two down the line everything is perfect, man, hunky dory? What
Oh,
are you going
yeah.
to use for inspiration then?
I don't know. I'll have to tell you. I'll have to tell you later. I'll tell you
Fair,
when I
fair.
get that.
No worries, no worries. So, Wes Hoffman and Friends. That's very important as detail. So, can you go into detail about how the Friends part came together effectively?
Sure, sure. So for a while I was going by Wes Hoffman Positive Punk. You know, because I like the idea of punk rock and having it be a positive thing, having fun at our shows. We jump around a lot. And you know, when I put these songs out, I do you know, I write the songs, I play the guitar, I played all the instruments on the recording except for drums. My good friend Hez Retnu, he played drums. He plays drums, and we're very good. He's an incredible drummer, and he's a very good creative partner to have. And you know, what I really wanted to kind of show was, hey, it's Wes Hoffman and friends. It's me and my friends playing music together. So when we play live, my best friend Jacob, we've been best friends for 20 years. He plays bass. And then one of my friends, we've only been friends for 3 or 4 years, but Johnny, he plays guitar. So it's all friends of mine, and that's what it's important. That's important to me is that like I've always enjoyed playing music with my friends, and
Hmm.
I've always wanted there to be like you know, I've never wanted to necessarily like look at music as a job. Always liked to, hey, this is kind of a brotherhood. This is a camaraderie. When we have practice, like we hang out, we have a couple of beers, you know, we play video games and stuff like that. Like it's um, more of that type of thing. So you know, and I had also been I wanted to use my own name as well because I had done several other projects around here in the area that people had known me from, and I had my own business for a while, and I had a podcast and stuff, and so I just felt like I'm doing a lot of the songwriting. I'm kind of leading the way in this project. You know, I wasn't ashamed to put my name on it.
No, absolutely. When you are so integral to that particular, I mean, everything is you, so it's you.
Sure.
What would you? I mean, this is hyperbole more than anything else. Would you be comfortable at ever opening the door for the Am Friends part to contribute in the future? Is that something you've considered, talked about, discussed?
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, you know, I like the idea. This is just how I am. I like
Mm.
you know, being the main player. I like, you know, writing the skeleton of the songs. And I would say that, you know, especially with the drums, like with Hez Retnu, his nickname is Hez. So HES. So if I say that, that's who I'm referring to. Uh, I will kind of give him a demo and I'll be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking with on the drums. And he'll add his own flair to it and that type of thing. And then, I demo out a lot of the songs and give them to the guys and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking on guitar. But like, if you have, I'm open to your input as well, and I feel like these couple songs, and I'm looking to go into the studio soon again and record a few more songs. Like it was really important to me to be a part of, to be the main player and do all of that myself. I really wanted to do that. But I'm definitely open to them in the future. Like, hey, let's kind of write together. I do feel like two heads are better than one. Sometimes it's okay. Hey, here's the best that I can do. Here's what I got. Like, what can you guys add to this to make it better? And I would be a fool if somebody came to me with just some sick riff or like an awesome drum beat or something, a really cool bass line, to be like, no, I didn't come up. I don't have that big of an ego to be like, no, well, if it's not my bass line, it's not going on the record, So,
no, that's completely understandable. But you must completely be aware that when people see a name on a band, that they do think ego.
Oh, sure. I'm sure they do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's not necessarily like, I don't feel like that's where it's coming from for me. You know what I mean? Like, this is more of just like, hey, this is me putting, I'm the leader of the band. I'm putting all the effort into it. I'm writing the songs, I'm recording, I'm the driving force behind it. And, I'm sure people can think that, or they do, but whatever.
yeah, because there's another side to it. I think is probably more important and what majority of people actually do, which is, in my case, for example, obviously when I got all your details, I was like, okay, what's this about? Who's this guy? Because London, UK, be honest, never heard of you, man. And instantly it was like, okay, cool. You must have a big background. You must have a background. And you end up Googling and finding out and looking, going, oh, okay, this is why, and so on. So I think the opposite side to thinking, okay, there's a guy and he's got an ego, is, oh, actually, maybe he actually has backstory. Let's find out what that backstory is and learn some stuff about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I think that's cool, man. What did you find when you Googled me?
Oh, it was awful, man. So much social media crap. Not at all. You've never Googled your own name? You must have Googled your own name.
Oh, I mean, it's been a long time, but yeah, I think everybody's Googled their own name before. There are several Wes Hoffmans out there as well, so. Of
course.
It's a fairly common name, I guess.
But we want to, we focus a lot on the positivity in your music and the message you want to send. And that is kind of the point with the new single, What's Left of Me, released March 5th, 2021. Whatever you stream, you can go listen to this. If you've got YouTube, go listen to it there. Now, you already talked about what you wanted to say and so on, but it is still wrapped up in this positive bubble. So explain how you portray that.
Oh yeah, man. I would say, especially with this song, like, there's dark times. We all go through dark times. So I used to be the kind of person that was like, oh, life is great. Life can be whatever you want to make it. And like, I still stand by that to a degree. But there are things that happen like COVID. People in our lives pass away and die. We go through divorces, our relationships end, our pets die. Like, I'm sure I don't have any kids, but I'm sure being a parent, that's a whole world of things that you have to, like, a whole big learning experience. So, what I really wanted to share with people on this is like, that I think we need to be there. Everybody goes through dark times. Life, there are, like, I don't know a single person where at the end of their life they would say, oh no, everything was perfect and everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. I think we all go through dark times, but it's the idea of trying to stay positive during those times, of hey, I can make it through this, and I have friends. And I had to remember that, like, there's a line in there that talks about, like, I've got your number, it's in the back of my mind. And that was kind of saying, hey, I'm thinking about reaching out to somebody because I need help. and
Mm.
and I want my friends to know that, like, they can reach out to me too. And a lot of times, again, like going back to that social media conversation, like we feel like we're separated from each other, we're disconnected, or we can't reach out. um and then on the flip side, also just saying, like, the chorus that, like, um going through those dark times taught me that I can make it through, and that I am, in my darkest hours where I found my power. Like, kind of that idea of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, I feel like that's really, even though things got a little dark the last few years for me, 2 or 3 years, um I made it through it. And that I have hope, that things will get better, and that, like, not everything, when I say you and me were never meant to be, not everything is meant for us. Like, life is very fluid, and relationships are fluid. Relationships end, friendships end, jobs, we move on from one job to another, that, and really hitting on the title then too is what's left of me. When I got through and I got this new job, a relationship ended, and I moved into this new apartment. Like, I finally was able to kind of sit down and be like, okay, like, I kind of, what's left here? Like, where am I in my life again? And in a weird way, some kind of like midlife crisis kind of type thing, where it's like, okay, where am I? What am I? Who am I again? Like, it was almost like I lost myself in, like, all these things that I was trying to hold on to, and when I let go, it was like, now, a year ago when I moved into this apartment, now I'm in this, if I when I look back from a year ago to now I've got this new song out, like, things are really good, things are happening. But, like, there were some dark times leading up to this, and that you can make it through it. And um yeah, I mean, I used to kind of want to be, it's maybe a little bit of a leap from positive punk to in my darkest hours where I found my power. But
You completely understand the power that music can have on people, and
absolutely.
even if it's the most negative sounding song in the world, for a person, it might be what drags them out of a particularly dark day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and it's been cool, man, because I have had several people reach out, and friends, or some people that have just maybe made comments online that this song is emotional, and that, like, it makes them feel a certain way. And I really wanted to. I mean, that means a lot to me. That, like, um, that it's hitting people in the feels a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could want to sell 1 million records, and yeah, that'd be great to sort you out financially and all that. But I'm not a musical artist. I've got no dog in the race. But I always imagine the most important thing would be to get a singular message from a person that says, "Hey, your track really helped me out."
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it does. That means a lot. It really means a lot. Anytime that I get a message, even just the fact that people listen and they tell you that they like it is one thing. But when somebody, and that's awesome. Like, I welcome those messages. But when someone says, "Hey, that really helped me out," or that, I teared. Some people have told me I've teared up when I listened to it. Like, I cried a little bit. Like, I mean, that means that the emotion is coming through and it's connecting with people, and that means more to me than anything, for sure.
Do you have a kind of, talking about emotional connection for yourself? Do you kind of have go-to artist or go-to track or go-to album that you kind of, if you're feeling in that mood where you want to get a little bit, I don't want to say tearful, but you want to feel again? Do you have a particular thing you go for?
Yeah. I mean, for more so for me, it's like energetic stuff. If I'm really there, Strung Out, Twisted by Design, I think came out in 1998. Super fast punk, a little metal. I can throw that on and I know every word. I know every riff. I'll play air guitar to that. Like, and yeah, I've got a few sad songs as well where if I'm like if if I'm feeling like, man, I really need to get I need to get some tears out. I need to cry. I need to have a good cry. I definitely have my go-to songs where I'm like, if I can put this song on, I will end up crying.
What about the opposite then? What about the time when you what do you have a track in mind where you just a positive, upbeat vibe just makes you feel that little bit taller?
Oh,
It's such
my
an
favorite
smart
song is
question.
not a punk rock song. It's not a punk rock song. The
Uh,
song, it's called it's Marvin Gaye, and it's "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" by Marvin
oh
Gaye.
well, I mean it's
If I
Marvin
put
Gaye, so
yeah, dude, if I put that on, I will be on cloud nine for like at least an hour.
no, I get it, absolutely. I mean, it's Marvin Gaye. There's a voice that can send you either way. In incredible, incredible. So, 2021, then, what else do you have in the work that that you can share with us that you want to talk about? What's going on for the rest of the year?
Sure, sure. Yeah, thank you. So I have another single that'll be coming out soon. I'm thinking probably in May, maybe the middle of May. I'll release another single, and then I would like to go back in the studio. I'm gonna record 3 more songs and put them out as the 5-song EP. So by the end of the year, my goal is to have out a 5-song EP, and then next year, I know this is a little ambitious, but I would love to do a full-length album in 2022. So
Okay.
we'll see. I got a lot of songwriting to do, but
I was about to ask you, well, yeah, I was gonna. What's so ambitious about putting out an album next year? Is it just the songwriting aspect that you've
oh
got to get
yeah,
the stuff together?
it's just getting it all together. I mean, even um, you know, I'll have 5 really, really good songs that I'll put
Mm.
out by the end of the year. This is the first one, "What's Left of Me." But out of these 5 songs, I probably wrote 30.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so and some of them were good, some of them were bad. But this is like the best. These are the 5 that made it out of those 30. So um, it's like and that a lot of that was leading up to this. Now I feel like I've gotten so much better at songwriting and knowing what I want and how the songs flow. And again, my confidence is back. Like I've gotten much better at um, just being a confident songwriter and saying, okay, this is a good song. Like I like it. If I like it, that's probably a good song that other people will like it. If I think it's catchy, if I catch myself humming it, if I find myself wanting to listen to it, even if it's like, unreleased, if it's just in my Dropbox or something like that, like I
mm.
know that that's probably a good sign that other people are going to like it too. So I know
It's the
that I'm going
first
to be
step.
doing a lot of writing, and that's the thing. And then recording in the studio, I've only really recorded 2 or 3 songs at a time. So going in, it's going to be multiple days in the studio. If I do it on the weekends, it's going to be multiple weekends. Like,
Mm.
it's just a lot of a bigger project than recording a 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah, yeah. People who listen, who enjoy the music, forget the work that goes into it. Those, I gotta ask, those other 25 songs, though, the ones that you decided you didn't like, do you effectively throw them in the bin, or do you put them to the side to potentially look back on in a year or two time and think maybe I can tweak and make that one this?
Yes, I do. I do exactly what you said. I don't completely throw them away because there might be a good chorus or a good verse or a good riff or breakdown, or there might be a part of the song that, oh, I really liked that one part, but I didn't like the rest of the song. So, um, yeah, I definitely save them. I have them all in my Dropbox, so I do go back and listen to, and it's actually really cool to go back around the time. It's been 2 years now since I started recording things in GarageBand. Recording demos, fully fleshed out. So to go back to some of those old songs that I first wrote like 2 years ago, compare them to the ones now, it's cool to see how I've progressed and improved and that type of thing. So, and those songs, again, like I don't feel like they're necessarily bad. They're just not
Mm.
a good representation of where I'm at now. So it's kind of like this little digital, like scrapbook of songs.
Plus, further down the line, when you've got a ton more releases, fans love little B-sides and unreleased demos and stuff
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. Yeah, one of my favorite bands, the Get Up Kids. They're from the area. Yeah, they're from this area that I live in. Not far from here, anyways. Other side of the state. They put out an album um, in the early 2000s that was like they put out a couple singles on it, that were like newer songs, but all the rest was like old demos and songs that never really saw the light of day, B-sides that were hard to find. And it was really cool. There would be outtakes here and there on some of the songs, and it would just be really cool to do something like that down the line for sure.
Absolutely. It is fan service, and that's what they want. What about, I mean, I know this is impossible to predict, but what would you, I guess, like to do in regards to potentially live shows this year or into 2022? Do you have a kind of goal in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, um, later this year when things get a little bit better here, I would love to do an EP release show and really, find a venue here and just try to get as many people as I possibly can. I would love to play for a couple hundred people if I could, and play an awesome show. When I first started this project, our first show was at a place that only held maybe like 60 people, and we packed it out. We just absolutely packed it out. And I love small shows like that. Like that was definitely intentional to like, hey, let's get a small venue and get as many people in there as we can. It was really fun.
Absolutely.
But next year, if things go the way that they're going and still stay positive and things are opening up, I would love to do like just a few little tours here and there, even if it's just a weekend. It would be so awesome to, like I said, there's people all around that are listening to this song now. It's not just in St. Louis where I'm from. So it would be really cool to, do a little weekend where maybe we hit some places in Texas, or maybe we make our way up to Chicago and back, or something like that. So I would love to do a little like 4-day weekend here and there. The guys in my band, we all have girlfriends or wives, and we all have full-time jobs. So it's a little difficult to kind of make it work, but I would love to find a way to make it work.
Yeah, it's all about making it work in your lives. Because I'm just thinking, well, come on, guys, if you had like a year's worth of planning and you all got a week off work, there's a plane. You jump on the plane, and you can travel around Europe very, very quickly. You can drive in a couple of hours and be in a completely different country.
Sure. Oh yeah, I would love to do that. That would be, I would love bucket list. Before I die, I would love to go over to Europe and play some shows. I've heard that there's like, I lived in Norway, like I said, and there's some like, there's a really good like black metal, death metal scene in Norway from what I know. I wasn't too much involved in it, but like, and I would love to play some of the venues over there and like hit up Germany. And I've heard in some of the cities over there, it's really good punk scenes are really thriving. And yeah, I'd love to make my way over there at some point.
Yeah. I mean, even our country here, the UK, obviously its own history with punk, and the grittiness and so on would fit in nicely. Probably not so much the positive messages, because we're a miserable bunch in the UK. But, you can cheer some people up, right?
I will.
So we'll come to the end now, and we're going to touch upon the stuff that we kind of cover on the website. Now we've discussed the musical side, so we'll push that to the side. And the other two areas we cover is video games and horror movies. Let's go to horror first. First things first, horror movies. Do you watch? Do you enjoy?
Yes and no. So I'm a little like, when I'm watching a show, especially a horror movie, I get so into it that it puts me on edge, But some of the good ones, since I knew I was going to be doing this podcast, a movie I was never allowed to watch as a child, I went back and watched Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, with Freddy Krueger. And honestly, it's a lot different now than, as an adult. than it was when you're watching it as a kid. I have to admit, I laughed a lot. It's a little silly, but when I was a kid, Freddy Krueger absolutely terrified me. I was terrified of Freddy Krueger. I watched the It movies, with Stephen King. I watched those when they came out. I thought those were really good. But I'm not super into the genre. I don't know a ton, but like I watch some of the big ones.
Yeah, well, this isn't about tripping you up and trying to make you go, why don't you know this movie? Because that would be insane. We actually run a completely different set of videos where it's called Desert Island Dregs, and in that you end up having to nominate and so on. And people always tend to choose the hits, be it Nightmare on Elm Street, Alien, Friday the 13th, the stuff for a lot of people we kind of grow up on. You said as well, you as a kid, for some reason, everybody tells the same story, which was, yeah, I saw these movies as a kid. And it's like, these movies were rated 18 or R in your country.
Yeah.
And it's like, why were we seeing them as children? I know I saw those movies when I was like 7 or 8.
Yeah. Or even when I was really into it when I was a teenager, I watched all the Scream movies. And then like I Know What You Did Last Summer. Those were always fun to like whenever you're a teenager, it's like, oh, let's go be scared. And Blair Witch Project was really big when I was in high school too. So.
Well, sticking with it then, what in horror scares you then? What kind of makes you uncomfortable? You talk about sitting on edge when you're watching one, but what is there a specific type or a specific style or a specific event that occurs, a trope, so to speak?
It's more of the suspense for me. Like, that's why I feel like, it's that feeling of like, something's going to jump out or it's that feeling where you're so into it and you're watching it. And then like, the killer jumps out of nowhere and you freak out. It's like, it's that feeling that gets me for some reason. And then when I was younger, like you watch a movie that really scares you and it sticks with you for several days afterwards and you can't sleep because you think Freddy Krueger is going to come get you in your dreams, or Pennywise is just like down the hall, I will have to admit that I have woken up in the middle of the night in my apartment by myself and been afraid that Pennywise is going to get me.
yeah, mate, I completely agree. I don't go a day or two without watching some form of horror movie, a new one or something that I need to do for a YouTube video, and I'll still sometimes go to sleep and wake up in the morning thinking, did I really just have a dream / nightmare about something horror related, like, of all people? I would almost say I'm desensitized to it, so it's still a surprise.
Sure.
What about zombies? Because zombies is the most important aspect of our website.
I really liked Zombieland. I was watching Walking Dead up until when Negan came in, and then I kind of lost interest. But I really loved Walking Dead for a while. I was really, really into it. Yeah.
Have you seen The Return of the Living Dead, 1985 movie?
I have not.
That's a recommendation. It's got an incredible punk rock soundtrack.
Okay.
Famous, yeah. In fact, I've got it on LP behind me. That like loads of punk bands on that stuff that plays in the movie as well, and it's got a very punk rock spirit with a bit of comedy. It's very gory, very violent, very adult. It literally inspired our title. The brains part you see with the 3 R's and the 3 A's, that comes from that movie. And I don't know if you can see it, but I've even got it tattooed on me. That's how iconic that movie is. So yeah, if you get time, check that one out.
Will do.
Video games then. So we try to cover video games as much as we possibly can. And we, amongst us, the group, we basically predominantly play Xboxes and Nintendo Switches. What's your console of choice?
Oh, I have a Nintendo Switch. So,
okay.
Yeah, I recently just started playing Apex Legends.
That gets a lot of flack. I've never played it, but I'm swear that game gets a lot of flack.
Why so?
In that people don't enjoy it, or that it was a rip-off. I'm not too up on it. I know the game.
It's just definitely I think it's very similar to like Fortnite.
Right, that's it.
Yeah, but it's kind of more of a Fortnite. I tried to play Fortnite. I had no idea what was going on in Fortnite. I tried to play, and Fortnite kind of has this goofy feel to it. It's kind of like, it feels like it's geared towards younger kids. It definitely seems fun. I'm not knocking it. I haven't played it even that much. So, but Apex has kind of more of a, feels like a serious tone. I will say this, like, I had I used to play Call of Duty on Xbox, like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, that kind of thing.
Old school.
Yeah, I like the old school first person shooter. Like, I like playing online. I just think it's fun. It's like, I like, these are games that, like, you have to get good at. You have to practice, and you have to play a lot in order to get good. So when I started Apex Legends, though, I had absolutely no idea. Like, there's this ring, you have to stay in the ring, or if you don't, like, this heat wave kind of like comes in on you and like forces you to get back in the ring. So it's like, you have all these, it forces the teams to, like, as the ring gets smaller, you can't hide, like, basically that you have to get out and fight. And so it gets really suspenseful. Like last night I played a little bit, and I won a match. I think I've only won a match like 2 or 3 times, and I've only once or twice I've been alive when I've won. So, or my team has won. So, but it gets really suspenseful when it gets down to just your squad, and another squad in this tiny little area. So my heart starts beating a little fast. It's like I'm watching a horror movie. My heart starts beating. I'm like, oh my God, are we gonna win? What's gonna happen? Like oh shit, I'm dying right now. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm gonna let the whole team down. Like, we made it so far, and the rounds. If you make it to the end of a round, it'll last like, if you win, it's like 20 minutes.
Wow.
Straight, running around trying to find gear. It's just if anybody's listening and that hasn't played it and wants to, give it time, because it took me a solid week of just dying and not knowing what the hell I was doing. And I started looking up a lot of videos on YouTube on how to play it. And now that I've kind of know what I'm doing, it's a lot more fun.
Because the daunting thing with that game and the likes of Fortnite, as you said, is if you didn't jump on it when it was first there, to dive in now is incredibly terrifying.
Really hard. Yeah. There's a pretty steep learning curve. There's so much in these games these days. It's not like, oh, you have Mario and it's not like on the original Nintendo where you're just like moving a little man across the screen. It's like there's this giant world, and there's all these different kinds of weapons and different special things that each character can do, and it's almost too much to take
overwhelming
in. Yeah, it's overwhelming. So you have to just give it time, and then over time you learn. And I will say also, there's thousands of YouTube videos. If you just type in how to play Apex Legends or how to play Fortnite, I watched a couple of those videos and I was much better. I'm also a very big pinball player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like to play pinball, and there's a lot with pinball too. It can be a little overwhelming with that, but I watch. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how to play pinball too. So.
There's a YouTube video for everything. Anything you want to do in the world, there's someone has done a video for.
For sure.
So, like multiplayer games in general, then is that always your go-to style of video game you wish to play?
Not always. I like just solo games too. I was playing The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild for a while. I played this really cool game. One of my favorite games on the Switch is called Cuphead.
Oh, of course, Cuphead. Yeah, incredible. Yeah,
so fun. And just beautifully done. Beautifully done. So
what's it?
I rage quit though that several times. I quit for 2 weeks one time. I was so mad at the game I didn't play it for 2 weeks.
And there's a chance that when you came back after those 2 weeks, whatever made you mad, you were able to do like that.
Yes, exactly. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, they always say that, innit? If you spend an hour, 2 hours stressing at one particular point, put the controller down, go away, come back a day, and in a calmer mind, and you'll probably get straight past it.
Yeah, it's so weird how that works.
What to date has been your favorite multiplayer experience?
Oh man, I really did enjoy the okay, well, I wish the Switch would do this. I love the old GoldenEye, James Bond for Nintendo 64. I it would I mean, I don't know why they're not doing it, but they
Mm,
should release that on the Nintendo Switch and have it be
mm.
online because that was I spent hours playing that when I was in high school. GoldenEye. But I really enjoyed the old Call of Duties too. Like Modern Warfare 2 was the first one that I got, and I would play that all the time when I was younger. I mean, I know that's going back maybe 15 years or something like that, but it was so fun. It's I don't know. It was just a fun game, and I like getting on there with friends. You know, I have friends in different parts of the country, and I like getting on there with people and playing together as a team.
I mean, you're right. It was a while back, but it was the simplicity back then. You didn't have the wealth of stuff that you have now, be it free to play elements and loot boxes and all these things that kind of
Absolutely.
put you off the modern experience. What about single player then? What when you would you look at if someone said to you, oh, effectively name me your favorite single player experience?
Um, one of the one that comes to mind right now is Assassin's Creed.
Oh,
I
the
really
first
like
game?
uh just the whole franchise. Like
Yeah.
I would say like the Black Flag one was really good. That one was
Okay.
probably one of my favorites, but yeah, I really liked the Assassin's Creed games for sure. Like Assassin's Creed 2, you know, when they have the first game, it's kind of like they add to them as time goes on, you know what I mean? And those can be really overwhelming too. But I feel
Mm.
like Assassin's Creed 2 really stands out to me as like a good one. I don't remember a lot of the parts of the story, but I liked that there was this element of you had side missions and then you had like a main story that you could follow and you could level up your character with your armor and like outfits and stuff like that. And then you had like these temples that you would have to go into that you
Mm.
have to like climb to get to the top of the temple and get some kind of shrine or urn or something. And Zelda has that as well, has those little like kind of
It's
like
very classic dungeon stuff, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, like puzzles you had to figure out. And another good single player game is Batman Arkham Asylum from the Xbox 360. Those Batman games, all of them were good, but the original Batman Arkham Asylum, like I remember playing that and thinking like I was sad when it was over. It was so much
Mm.
fun.
No, I agree. They're incredible, incredible games. Yeah, with Assassin's Creed as well. Like, it's often because that franchise is so bloated now with so many games, it's almost impossible to keep up. But the period you're talking about was probably the period as well where I found myself obsessed with it, with Assassin's Creed 2 and Ezio storyline, Black Flag with the addition of the ships and stuff like that. Just incredible
Yeah, so
experiences.
cool. Yeah, so cool.
What about, and this is another question that you're going to have to think about, what about a game? This is a big deal for us. A game that you feel emotionally connected to, be it because of something that occurred in it or just something that almost has nostalgic value to you for that reason.
Mm, mm. Man, that is a really really good question. So a game that like really means something to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a tough one, right?
yeah, I'm trying to think about something that um one of the this is gonna sound so silly. When did you ever play Gears of War?
Of course, yeah.
When okay, oh no, okay, I've got a good one. I got a good one. So Gears of War, when Dom dies in, I think it's in Gears of War 2 or 3. That was pretty sad. Um, yeah, 3. I was and that game is pretty cool. Like
Mm,
those
absolutely.
those are pretty fun games. But I will say a game that really is near and dear to my heart, and I haven't played it in a long time, is Resident Evil 4 Zombies. um, and why it is when that game came out, I had it on GameCube, and my best friend Jacob, who plays bass in my band, he would come over to my house. We were like 23, 22, 23 at the time, and he would come over to my house and we'd have a 6-pack of beer, and I would play the game and he would kind of guide me through, and we would just talk. And it's not necessarily that game. I mean, that game is really fun, and it's suspenseful, and it's actually pretty scary. I played that. We were talking about being scared earlier. Like, I would play that with the lights off sometimes, and turning it off, and then the walk from like the couch to the bathroom was scary. It's like, is a zombie gonna jump out at me? But yeah, we just had some really good times over that game, and really had a lot of fun with it. It's a really cool game.
I'm glad to hear that. We like to ask that question as well, because it's got that kind of thing where it triggers something in people's head, not so much about, oh, this scene made me sad or that particular event made me sad, but most people, even if they don't play games anymore, grew up playing them and will have some connection to, be it family or to friends, and go, yeah, you mentioned GoldenEye earlier on, playing that in high school. And all I thought was, yeah, I have several brothers all around the same age. And we played GoldenEye split screen, and we would create our own variations on the game in multiplayer, where it was like, okay, this is proximity mines only, that kind of situation.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's weird. I feel like gaming is often the only media that can allow that level of nostalgic flashback. You know, you get nostalgia for everything else, but not that same way, it seems.
For sure. Yeah, because I think you remember different times that you played with people, like different, like what I was even just saying about me and my friend Jacob. It's not necessarily the game. It was like that summer, all summer long, he would just come over and we'd get a 6-pack of beer and we'd just hang out and talk. And I'm not a smoker anymore, but my parents live out by the lake. We'd walk down to the lake and smoke cigarettes, and it was just one of those like early 20s nostalgic experiences,
It's a nice memory.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, now the problem is when you're a grown up, you just don't have the bloody time to sit there and put the amount of hours sometimes some games demands,
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, I mean, well, what was the latest big Cyberpunk, that one? I took one look at that and went, where the hell am I going to find the time to do this?
Yeah, I haven't played it. I mean, it looks cool.
It does. Right. We're going to wrap up then. And podcasts. So you've mentioned a couple of times podcasts.
Yeah, I haven't podcasts that I listen to, or so I just was listening earlier today. There's this podcast that if you're interested in like love and relationships, or even just kind of like personal development, there's this guy who does a podcast called The Love Drive.
Right.
And it's really interesting. I'm really interested in like psychology and self-help and spirituality in a way, if that's what you want to call it, personal improvement, that kind of stuff. So he has a really good podcast. The Daily Stoic is also just a good like 3-minute podcast that you can listen to every day. It's something really cool to start your day with. Of course, I listen to, I haven't listened to him in a while, but I used to listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. He was kind of the OG podcaster. I have my own podcast, but I haven't put out an episode this year yet. It's just called Wes Hoffman with Friends. So, but I have a bunch of episodes up. So if you want to listen to it, it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that kind of stuff.
Well, plug it. Tell me about it. Tell us about this podcast. Yeah.
So a lot of it is, it's pretty free form. A lot of it is just me talking with my friends about like, a lot of that stuff that I mentioned, like, how did you get through this dark time? What are some of the things, what are you going through right now? How are you getting through it? Like, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned? And then I also talk to bands and musicians as well, and kind of dig in with them, like, what is that keeps you guys going? And, how did, kind of going into a more deeper, like, what's the reason behind why you do what you do kind of type thing. So I've been doing it for a while. I had another podcast for a long time with several of my friends called The Strange House. We've since taken everything down, but we like went on the Vans Warped Tour for a few days and interviewed a bunch of bands there. And we would, when bands would come through town, we would interview them. And that was really fun as well. So I just really like talking to people. If you haven't noticed.
No, that's amazing. What stopped you putting it out so far this year? Just time?
Yeah, honestly, I just got so into putting the music out that I kind of lost track on putting out some episodes. But I was actually just thinking, now that my song is out, I want to do an episode where, sometimes my podcast is just me talking as well. And it's me talking about what I'm going through. For a while, I was just putting in might sound a little weird, but I would just put in my AirPods and go for a walk around the park and talk about what I was experiencing and, what I was going through and different things that I had learned about myself or about, how about my perspective, how I view the world. Like, I'm always reading books like personal development books, self-help. I'm really into mindfulness and meditation. So a lot of times I'm talking about that kind of stuff. So I feel like now I actually have just been thinking about, and I've been doing a lot of podcasts recently. So I've been thinking maybe it would be nice to put on an episode and just kind of talk a little bit about where I'm at. And now I feel like my podcast has almost become just a way for me to communicate with people in a different way.
I mean, it's there. It's a tool to be used, and why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah.
What? It's always a strange experience for me to speak to anyone who eschews the values of meditation, things like that. I can't relate. I can't quite cotton onto it. And you're not the first person who said, hey, try this and do this and all that. I'm sitting there going, I can't picture how I could ever shut my mind off because I'm always doing something. And I'm not alone. That's a lot of people's problem when it comes to starting that. What advice do you give to kind of, if you wanted to start getting into meditation, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And on, you're not the first person who's told me that too, because I will recommend it to people. And I've been meditating every day for 5 years, almost. Wow. 10 minutes a day. Sometimes 45 minutes. Sometimes you can just really get to this point where you're like, there's just nothing happening in here. And you're just, I would say in the same way that we were talking about games like Apex Legends and all that, like it takes time. And the first time I sat down to meditate, I was like, this isn't doing anything for me, but I committed to like doing it for 10 days. And by the end of that 10 days, I started to look forward to, and I felt the exact same way that you did. I feel like there's always something going on in my mind. I'm a deep thinker. I have a good memory. I'm always thinking about something funny or something weird or cringy that happened in the past. It's really helped me even dealing with my emotions and stuff like that. So I would just say, it's not going to happen if you just sit down and try to meditate one time. Like, it's something that it's a practice. That's what I always say is like, they talk about meditation is, you have a meditation practice. It's like, you never fully get to this point where it's like, oh, it gets easier and easier to meditate over time, but it's something that you just practice, and it's not for everybody either. Like some people, when I talk about meditation on social media and stuff, people will say, oh yeah, well, when I ride my dirt bike, I feel like I'm meditating and like there's nothing else happening in my mind, but I'm riding my dirt bike and I feel like that's like my meditation for me. Or skateboarding, or could be, I think everyone has something like that when you're doing it, everything else kind of starts to like melt away a little bit. But yeah, it's something, and I'll be honest, like some days I sit down to meditate and 10 minutes is over and I'll be like, that didn't do anything. Like I was just sitting here thinking the whole time. Some days it's harder to shut my mind off than others. And then other times I'll sit down and I'll close my eyes and it'll feel like a blink of an eye went by and 10 minutes have
Really?
passed. Like it's really, really weird. It just really depends on what's going on at the time. And if something that's really bothering me, it's harder. It's harder to shut that off, because your ego's popping up saying, hey, you need to think about that dude that pissed you off, or you need to think about this thing that's bothering you, or you need to worry about how you're going to pay this next bill. Like these are all things that are going on in our minds all the time. And like meditation is just the practice of watching those things and like letting them pass, instead of like, you know, when you think, if you're like, oh, how am I going to pay this next bill? You can immediately go into a downward spiral of anxiety and worry and frustration and depression. You know, meditation is supposed to be the tool that's teaches us like, hey, even though I'm having that thought, I'm not going to act on it. I'm not going to go into that downward spiral. I'm just going to view it and leave it at that, let it be, you know? So it takes time. And it's not for everybody. Let me just say that.
No, that's fair. That's very, very, yeah. That's good advice. Good advice. So that's about it, really. Oh, actually, it reminded me, while you were talking about podcasts, a thought flew in my head, and this is just small world stuff. I listened to a podcast that's based out of St. Louis.
Oh, what is it?
Well, first thing, I wanted to check, is there more than one St. Louis in America? Do you know? Is that likely?
There's more than one, but St. Louis, Missouri is like
yeah. It's called Horrible Horror Podcast.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
Okay, it's just two dudes apparently live in St. Louis, talking shit about crap horror. And I don't listen to many podcasts, but it's one that's always entertained me for the last few years. And it just when you were talking about podcasts, it flew in my head. I was like, oh my god, that's they say they're from there.
That's awesome.
One of your bloody neighbors, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, that's funny. That is small world.
Yeah, Wes, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun. I hope someday I get to meet you.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?